forth by day. And it's called the Book of the Dead. How many persons in here are a member of the lodge? Y'all don't have to be scared. Is this the Prince Hall Lodge?
Yes, it is.
Please.
Yes, it is.
Lord. All right. So how many people do it again? How many people, you don't have to say that. The rest of you who are members of the lodge. All right. Yes, Mom. I'm also a member of Prince Hall. I'm very proud to be a member of Prince Hall. And I see our young people dissing Prince Hall in an attempt to diss white masonry. They're attacking themselves, and they don't understand the history of black masonry in America. And these men, these were the first revolutionaries in the 1700s. Prince Hall was the Dr. Martin Luther King and the Malcolm X of his day. He started the first school for black kids in his living room in Boston. You know, the lodge, they didn't forget who they were. The lodge was called the Free African Lodge. There's not a single white lodge in this country that can show you a charter from the Grand Lodge in England, but Prince Hall can. We have a charter. They tried to burn our church down in Boston once to burn the charter up. But the brothers had it in the pipe where you cut the both end and did scorch. But now our charter, we bring it out once a year in July. And we've got it in the bank vault where it's safe, because it's significant. If you understand anything about Freemasonry, you know that Freemasonry is simply a modern manifestation of ancient Kemetic sacred science. Okay? It's our thing that somebody else took and put their brand on. Just like Christianity, it's our thing, but somebody else took it and put their cultural brand on it. And so we then reject it because we don't recognize it anymore. You understand? So we have to come back to an understanding. That's what history erases. The what? The mystery. Y'all be listening to my tapes. You gotta listen to my stuff. History erases the mystery. And so today, my topic is going to be all over the place. Because I was listening to everything y'all was saying. Y'all all over the place. Right? So I've got to be all over the place too. And the topic was African spirituality throughout the ages. And that's a good topic. And when you do this stuff, you always want to jump ahead of yourself. But I'm going to try to really not jump ahead of myself. I'm going to try to really go through what I did, all the notes I was putting together. And I want you to know that for 3 or 4 o'clock, throwing out these notes, bringing these notes, and trying to get some sleep for about an hour, and then the phone kept ringing, so I was until 11 o'clock today, still trying to figure out, what am I going to say to these people? And then I figured it out. Say whatever the Spirit brings. So what I wrote down, I started out. Dr. Wade Nobles, who's a very good friend, he observed that Africans worldwide are suffering from what he calls a shattered consciousness and a fractured identity. A shattered consciousness and a fractured identity. And so what causes this? So he used the term, deal with the means. He says because of European mimetic infection that we have a psycho-spiritual virus, right? And so, where's Wade? But I'm going to read you some stuff from the book. He wrote this beautiful piece. It's called The Island of Meme. And it's about the unfinished revolution in Haiti. But it's bigger than the Haitian Revolution. It's about the African World Revolution. And he went down to Haiti during the period of the earthquake, him and a group of other black psychiatrists to see how they could help our people. And he came back and he wrote this beautiful book. So I said I was going to read, I'm not going to read too much, but I'm going to read some stuff. And I think that was page 53. He said, while colonialism had left most African countries in a situation of great economic weakness and dependency, the real legacy of colonialism and chattel slavery is the unspoken harm resulting from an invisible psychological terrorism in the form of educating generations of Africans, both continental and diasporic, to become alienated from their own essential worth, addicted to anything non-African, especially white thought, white behavior, and white belief. And he goes further when he says we're infected by the mimetic, European mimetic infection. He describes what the meme is, because when I first saw this word meme, and I'm not too educated, I kept saying, meme, what does he mean by meme? But he said, okay, the meme itself is defined as a unit of information residing in the brain. Its phenotypic effects are the external consequences of the mimetic information. Words, skills, behavior, etc., he suggests, are the outward and visible manifestation of the memes within the brain, which are transmitted between individuals via the sense organs. Memes use their possessors' communication and imitation skills in order to replicate themselves, and by influencing the world in which their possessor dwells, increase their chances of survival. It can, however, be argued that memes are more than just units of information residing in the brain. And what he's saying is that the white information that forms most of our consciousness really has more governing effect on us than we ever imagined. We think, even those of us who say, I'm black, and then you say define that, the only thing they can define black with is aesthetics. My clothes, my hair, my skin. But the thing that really makes you black, or we use black as synonymous with Africa, the thing that really makes you black is how you see yourself in the world. The value system that allows you to place yourself in the world. And so how do we begin to reverse the shattered consciousness and the fractured identity caused by European mimetic infection? How do we recover from post-slavery trauma syndrome? What is the process for decolonizing the African mind? How do we become masters of our own destiny? How do we again gain control over economics, politics, and culture where we live? We must begin to be instructed and informed by the knowledge and the wisdom of our ancestors. Learning knowledge and mastering your history will begin to erase the European mystery. Each of us collectively and individually need to begin the process of rebirthing the African consciousness. We must learn again how to be and what it means to be African. Stop believing in European lies, recognizing that you were conditioned to, to become something other than African. Recognize that you were conditioned to hate one another. We think, oh, well, we just got problem, we don't get along. It's deeper than we don't get along. There's something else somebody's been doing to you for a long time. And even though we've been fighting, they've managed to do it and get away with a lot of it because we don't know the nature of psychological warfare, because they use the very thing that you hold most sacred. They use God to dupe you. Right? Not the real God. But they use a concept of God that's presented in a religious format that resemble your religious format to trap you into becoming something that is nothing. And so there's a good book written by, so I'll show you all the little books and things. There are really books out here, right? This is written by a brother from Nigeria. We've never met, but he read a lot of my speeches and he heard a lot of things I had to say. And don't ask me how to pronounce his name because it's that long. But you can get the book online, and it's called Rebirthing the African Consciousness. And it's a fantastic document So I think I marked page 35. I want it to be a little piece. And it's phenomenal. Here's a young brother down in Nigeria, and he's listening to the same things you're listening to here in Florida. And then he responds to all the things he's heard from Dr. Van, Dr. Clark, Dr. Jeffries, Dr. Hilliard, myself, and others, with this beautiful document that he called Rebirthing African Consciousness. And I'm going to him because for years, I get tired of hearing people say African is not an African word. That's a lie. African is an African word. And now they try to put it on Dr. Ben because he's going to say, oh, it's a Kibulan. Maybe somebody calls some space a Kibulan. But a Kibulan is not the name of the continent of Africa. Because the continent of Africa, before being called Africa, didn't have a name for itself. It didn't need one, because we didn't see boundaries in that same way. You understand? But I want to read this because people play a lot with this word, and it's important. We need to do some history. So he's talking about this Africanus title, because everybody likes to talk about Leo Africanus. Well, Leo Africanus was born centuries after the word African was being used, right? Julius Caesar, he said, was called Julius Caesar Germanicus, because of his military success in Germany. Are we to say Germany or Germania was named after Julius Germanicus? We would never say that, because we understand what they mean. But we say Africa was named after Leo Africanus because he conquered that area of Africa that we call Libya today. It was called Carthage back in that day. Like Africa was in existence long before Julius Caesar Germanicus or Fabius Cornelius Scipio, or it is not possible that Germania could have been named after Julius Caesar or Africa. Listen to me closely, because a lot of you are caught up. I've heard the argument. I've listened to you on the internet, because I read everybody else too. I don't just be reading my own stuff. Some of the arguments is insane because it shows that people are not doing their research. There was also a man called Leo Africanus, a Berber Andalusian diplomat. Andalusius is the name of Spain when the Moors were there. And an author who was best known for his work, Descriptions of Africa. He was born as Al-Hassan ibn Muhammad Wazan al-Fasi. He became known as Jonas Leo Africanus. Leo the African, that's all his name. That this was a dude that was from Africa. After he converted to Christianity, because he was a Muslim prior to that, and what happened to the Moors, who was in partnership with our Arab cousin, most of our Arab cousins became Christians real quick when Isabella and Ferdinand armies came to the gate. They flipped on us. And if you ever heard the story of El Cid, the great Christian hero, well, El Cid was a great Muslim hero. Well, he became a great Christian hero, Arab. Another story. Are we to say that Africa was named after Leo because Africanus was attached to his name? Or are we to say Africanus was his surname? In Carthage, that's the area which is now Libya mostly, and Tunisia, present-day Tunisia, the word Afriki meant land of the sun. It's spelled A-F-R-I-Q-I-Y-U today. It simply meant land of the sun. Okay? Even the ancient Greeks and Romans, long before Publius Scipio, called the continent Africa Terra, which means the land of Afri, or the people of the sun. There was an African tribe called Afri, plural for Afriae, singular, that lived in northern Africa. Africanus in Latin means African, and it refers to a people. My teacher, one of the sweetest teachers I had, died at 102. Her name was Afriae. She was Ghanaian. And they migrated from Mauritania down to Ghana. The people in Ghana today they didn't always live in Ghana. They lived in the top of what was then the Mali Empire. You know? And her other name was Nana Fuasa. She was the chief priestess of Ashanti through two Santehenes, one of the most brilliant priests you ever want to know. So don't be trying to cause me any harm, because I got powers you can't even imagine. She used to read using water. It was the most amazing thing in the world. But we're going to get into some of our sacred science system in a minute. I just wanted to look at this word African because people really, and this is an African brother doing some good research. There were many people that went by the title Africanus, other than the Africans are experts on the affairs of Africa. People like Fabius Maximus Africanus, who was the youngest son of Quintius Fabius Maximus. Then you had Cornelius Africanus, Lucio Applivius Madrius Africanus, Constantinus Africanus, Julius Africanus. All they were saying is that either I lived in Africa, which had during the Roman time become a province of Rome, or I conquered part of Africa, and so I take its name. African, the one who conquered Africa, took the name. His brother conquered a part of Asia, so he made Asia his last name. Does that mean Asia is named after somebody from Rome? So we have to think. Africa, he says, is an indigenous name. Let me state that ancient Africans never at any point used any one particular name to describe the entire landmass of the continent. Never did we have a singular name for that entire landmass. We didn't even know the boundaries of that entire landmass. Alkebulan was one of the names we used, and Zania, Ortiga, Nubia, Libya were used to refer to or describe different people and regions on the continent, but none of them described all of the continent. You know? And Zania, for instance, was the ancient name of the area now called South Africa and some parts of East Africa. But ancient Greek historians, these are outsiders, like Herodotus and Strabo, Libya was the name for the continent. I didn't have to stay in bed a lot of days because I wanted to come here well enough to talk to you. But, you know, Herodotus wrote two books called on history, and they were considered to be, they called him the father of history. Until we started reading the book, and found out that book two was all about black folks, and it's all, well, he ain't father of history no more. But Herodotus in his history tells how Greece got everything that it got from the Africans. And then there was another great book called The Odyssey and the Iliad. How many persons have ever read The Odyssey and the Iliad? That's good. The Odyssey and the Iliad was done by Homer, and they used to say that was the first book in the world. But I already showed you this book was thousands of years older than The Odyssey and the Iliad. And so is the book of the Coming Forth by Day. But in The Odyssey and the Iliad, which was their oldest book, their greatest author says all of the gods of Egypt had to return to Ethiopia to renew themselves every year. So whose father? Whose mother? But he goes on, and then I'm going to stop talking about this because I just want to put this African thing, the African thing to rest. I don't even have to read him to do that. I think his statement opening up says enough. The people of the continent of Africa didn't name ourselves that way. The way they named things was based on quality and attributes that they found in the ecology or in the people. So the other thing they didn't do, they didn't own God's world. See, if you name something, it means you know the boundaries of the thing, and if you know the boundaries of the thing, then usually you can control the thing. So people didn't name things like that. If you study African language and you look at their words for person, people, place, or thing, you'll find the etymology of all those words would have their name for God either in the prefix or the suffix. So they were saying God is in every and all things. And that's how they name things. Well, I'm going to go further into that. But I just want us to realize that we, and I'm going to come to the foundation of Black America, and that's what I want to work to this point. There's a silly argument going around on the internet by silly people who are afraid to fight for freedom. So you want to divorce yourself from the freedom-fighting people or the people who need to fight for freedom. Then I ain't no African, and I ain't come from Africa. I've been here. Like we used to say down south, I've been here since Binyard Banyanda. But even if you've been here since Binyard Banyanda, you came from somewhere to get here. And everybody, white, black, Asian, red, we all came from Africa. Everybody came from Africa. There was a Chinese scientist, and I thought I brought his documents with me. He was really looking at Peking Man, and he was trying to show that Peking Man was the first man. And then he found out that in all of the Asian samples, there was the African genome, that everybody came from Africa. We move up to Asia, we move up to India, we move up to Australia, we move to Vietnam, we move to Cambodia, we moved to New Guinea, we moved to New Caledonia, we moved to Australia. We went everywhere in the world. We went to South America, we went to Central America. So why not North America? How are we going to go every place in the world but not North America? Right? We were everywhere before anybody else were anywhere. There's only one race in the world. It's African. Everybody else is a aspect of that gene depreciation or appreciation, depending on how you look at it. Most real scientists and historians or religious leaders knew these things. We sit in a temple here today of Freemasons. And I gotta be careful. Because I'm always like, small, you ain't supposed to give away no secret and all that stuff. What secret are you talking about not supposed to give away? But the whole thing is about how to be human. To be African is to be human. Okay? And what secret societies, the ones we are a part of, that was formulated by Europeans, is trying to figure out how they could be humans with the knowledge of Black people. But we were under their domination, so we had to take those same organizations to try to survive, to get out from under their knee. And so we have to be very cognizant of the fact that we are not Europeans. And I don't mean Europeans genetically, because some of us got people in our family, if you see some members of my wife's family, you're like, yo, they look like any white people you want to ever want to see anywhere in the world. But don't tell them that, because they know they're Africans. So it is not about pigmentation aesthetics. That's only a small part of what this is about. It's about its consciousness. A consciousness that is formed through an understanding of cosmology and ecology. So that's why we had our brother Carter G. Woodson, the father of Black History Month, starting with Black History Week. He said, when you control a man's thinking, you do not have to worry about his actions. He will find his proper place and will stay in it. You do not need to send him to the back door. He will go without being told. In fact, if there is no back door, he will protest until one is made for his use. His education demands it. And then you have a big daddy, who's one of my teachers, John Henry Clark, and he's talking about history. I wasn't talking about history, race, and mystery. He said history is the clock that people use to tell their time of day. It is a compass they use to find themselves on the map of humanity's geography. It tells them where they are and what they are. We take history too lightly. I like to refer to history as the instructions and the information coming from your ancestry. But when you find what ancestry really is, you'll see how foolish we've been made to become. Dr. Wade Noble says, I've been taught that people without an accurate and appropriate knowledge of their history suffer from shattered consciousness and fractured identity. A true study of history allows one to tie bits and pieces of their scattered historical information together. This would allow us to develop foresight, create goals for our future, insight, know your present condition, hindsight, learning from your past. I'm going to go through those three again because we take them lightly, because we use them a lot. Foresight, create goals for your future. Insight, know your present condition. Hindsight, learn from your past. History allows you to develop that understanding. African Americans suffer from 250 years of slavery in the United States of America. 90 years of Jim Crow, which was an even more crude slavery than chattel slavery, because Jim Crow was predominantly an economic and a psychological and a social slavery. At a time when we were thinking we no longer were in slavery, they had us in a slavery that was worse than the one we thought we had gotten out of. 35 years of state-sanctioned redlining. You know, redlining was when we were caught with the economic system in America by the banking system that said if you live in this territory, we're going to put a line right here. Anybody live behind that red line, we don't make loans to them. We don't help them to get mortgages. But this other group on this side of the red line, we will give loans to them. We will help them to get mortgages. And so that intergenerational transmission of wealth never happened in our community the way it could have happened and the way it happened in the white community. And through all of these years, the African American endured centuries of rape, murder, social, cultural, political, and economic genocide. And yet, like beautiful Sister Maya says, and yet we rise, despite all of that. Here we are, still trying to figure out how to get out of this mess. We should declare that we are fighting at least 7 forms of oppression: physical oppression, cultural oppression and imperialism, economic oppression and imperialism, economic terrorism, spiritual dominance and confusion, linguistic imperialism, negative social manipulation, falsification of African consciousness. As a result of these and other forms of oppression, we have no global strategy or even local strategy for the upliftment of our race. We have no collective aim, no structures of socializing the masses of our children towards African consciousness, no structures for communicating the bodies of knowledge left to us by our ancestors for our racial survival. And we have an enormous body of knowledge. No one has the body of knowledge that we have, but we haven't been able to put it together, but we got it. African, and what we mean by African we mean the original human on planet Earth. Earth, parent, people. Let me say that again. By African we mean the original human on planet Earth. Earth's parent people. Africans, the first and only human creation to evolve from what we call God the divine, or being having his human experience. Africans properly said is God having a human experience. All other human groups are about mutations of the African gene pool. Genes, when we talk about the genes, the DNA of God the divine itself. Ancestors are your pedigree. You learn your pedigree from your history. God is your original ancestor. People define themselves by referring to their origin. We are the best of our ancestors' genes. We are the latest version of our ancestors. We are the highest tech version of our ancestors. Our children are the best of our genes, the latest version, and the highest tech model. clear on this, we produce something called consciousness. Consciousness is to be immediately aware of, while mentally recognizing, to some degree and extent, one's own inner feeling and thought or their objective preferences. Consciousness to be mentally alert, well aware of some object, impression, or truth. Consciousness, the power of self-knowledge and internal perception. Consciousness, the product of direct and convincing knowledge, whether of external or internal object. And so the primary motivation of a conscious person would be organizing the family. And the primary thing that motivates the need for organizing the family is the acquisition of food, clothing, shelter, and security. I don't care whatever else y'all in here do. I don't care what kind of jobs you got. You're doing it because you want to provide yourself with some food, because you got to eat. Provide yourself with some shelter, especially in this climate, some clothing, and some security. But we behave without even thinking or talking about those 5 things. Our motivation, getting out of bed in the morning, going to work in the morning, I got to go buy some food, clothing, shelter, security for myself and my family. Everything else comes after that inspiration. A family is the primary building block of a nation. Individuals unite to form families. Y'all call it love, but we're going to talk about that later. Because some of us didn't love, ain't love at all. Families unite to form neighborhoods. Neighborhoods unite to form communities. And communities unite to form nations. Let's go back over that again. Individuals unite to form families. Families unite to form neighborhoods. Neighborhoods unite to form communities. And communities unite to form nations. The 6th building block of any nation is the individual, the family, the ethnic group, the neighborhood, community, and nation state or kingdom. The 3 primary areas in which one must organize, and we've been failing at it poorly for the last 40, 50 years. Those 3 primary areas which the people must organize is culture, economics, and politics. Culture, economics, and politics. Sometimes that's an economic, politics, and culture. Economics is exploiting the wealth in the ecology you find yourself in. That's where the word eco comes from, ecology. So depending on where you live, the wealth may be oil, the wealth may be gold, the wealth may be agriculture, the wealth may be husbandry. But if you live in the urban world, the wealth is real estate, the wealth is retail businesses, the wealth is wholesale businesses, the wealth is controlling tax revenues returned to your community. And so, when we talk about politics, we think politics is getting elected to office and going to big dinners and looking cute and hanging out with the big shots. But your politics or your polity should be the thing that is created to manage your economics. It's your politics that manages your wealth and determine the distribution of that wealth. So if you go in and run for political office and you think your job is only to hang out at all the parties, be with all the big boys, make a little speech in Congress, and you don't understand why you ran for office or why you're a politician. Your politics manages your economic and determines the distribution of the wealth therein. And so we can see most of our politicians don't know why they're politicians. Don't know why they're in politics. Culture is your education system that has at its core, your spiritual system. Culture gives the ethical and moral premise for your politics to determine the distribution of your wealth. Yoruba history and culture, and I use this because this is my professor, Professor Akin Joe, one of the most brilliant men I've ever met. And he's talking about culture. He said, in actual fact, culture consists of all the items in the life of a group of human beings, which make them to feel belonging to one another and distinct from any other group around them. It comprises their language, religion, dress, social system, economic system, political system, their food, their leisure, their medical system, and their technological knowledge. Akinjoba further states that culture is not static, it is dynamic. Certain items that are no longer useful at a particular period in a particular culture can be discarded, and are usually discarded in favor of a new item that would suit the circumstances of the people and of the time. We did that very well when we first came to America. Something happened after the First World War. We seem to have forgotten how to be innovative and how we deal with culture. And one of the ways we did it well in the Black church, which I'm going to come to much later. The Black church has done great harm to Black people. But the Black church has also done some of the greatest good for Black people. But we have to look at the time that this was done to understand what to learn from and when to learn from it, and how we can use those things today. So we're going to get into area of talking about this thing called God. And so God, the thing we call God, expresses itself in this world through 7 kingdoms. The mineral kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, these are my kingdoms, right? The animal kingdom, the human kingdom, the insect kingdom, the fowl or bird kingdom, and the marine kingdom. So when we think of God, people will say, I'm praying to God, God gonna do this here, and God gonna do this here, and God gonna do so and so. God ain't gonna do nothing. Because the only way God do things is through you. You are the hands of God. You are the voice of God. God does not exist except as you. And if anybody in here could show me anything they've ever seen come from any God that didn't come from themselves or someone around them, I will kiss your feet for as long as you want me to do it. No, I don't want y'all to say, I like it. So, you know what I'm saying? But I want to make a point, because this is important, because this is where they got us in the law. This thing about God. And so I was writing another paper and I came across this. I referred to that. It says your ancestors are your pedigree. You learn your pedigree from your ancestors. People define themselves by referring to their origin. And we need to really get serious about that. What is our origin? What is our origin? We must be willing to seek awareness. We must be willing to learn to change. We must be transformed by positive change. We must be reborn as African human beings. We must seek and acquire knowledge. Knowledge changes your mind, someone said. Knowledge changes what you know. Knowledge changes what you do. Knowledge changes your world. And I think it was Laurel Say. I used to like Laurel Say. Anyone know who Mr. Laurel Say was? Myth or reality? Laurel Say? Who was Rose O'Connor Jackson? That's the book of the Tao. The book of the way. And I'll say in the book of the Tao that knowledge teaches you to learn. Knowledge teaches you to learn. And the culture of people is your primary education system. So my further definition of culture, training, improvement, refinement of the mind, morals, to taste. To develop or grow, culture is the tool that gives the people their shared definition of reality, their sense of order and maintenance of group integrity. Culture is the training and development of the mind. Culture is the refinement of taste and manners acquired by such training. Culture also involves the social religious structure that produced the intellectual and artistic manifestation that characterizes a society. Culture is responsible for rearing, cultivating, in a prepared manner, in a prepared medium, the next generation. Culture maintains the group historical consciousness. Culture is the education in the spiritual system, i.e., the socializing instrument determining our values, interests, and principles. Culture should be viewed as a scientific construct representing the vast structure of language, behavior, customs, knowledge, symbols, ideas, and values which provide people with a general design for living and patterns for interpreting reality. Culture is the expression of a people's effort to evolve a mode of life suitable to its environment, and any modification in the environment demands corresponding modification in the culture. Culture is the means by which a people protect themselves from genocide. The degree to which you lose your culture is the degree to which another would be able to cause genocide. And so we work with this thing called religion. Religion is a tool of spirituality. Religion comes from the Greek, to go back or do over, and legio, to bind. So what is it you're going back to bind yourself to? What you want to bind yourself to is the ways and the wisdom of your ancestors. But most people don't tell you that in religion. Religion means to bind back. A religious system should bind a people or a person back to the wisdom, the worldview or culture of their ancestors that should bring about a belief binding the spiritual nature of a person or group to a supernatural or divine being, as evolving a feeling of dependence and responsibility, together with a feeling and practice which naturally flows from such a belief. Religion includes worship or the reverence of the human spirit for divine seeking outward expression. Now listen, I didn't say the divine coming from out. Divine seeking outward expression. Meaning the Africans understand that the divine is within. And so when we go to school to get so-called educated, what we're going to school for is to get tooled and trained in how to bring the divine in you out. When you invent something, that's the divinity in you brought out. When you achieve something against any odds, that's the divinity that gives you the courage to meet those challenges. You are going to school to get the tooling to bring something inside out. The very word educate that makes it the word education means to bring something inside out, not to take something outside and put it in. And that's the mistake of the West. They think they're going to teach you something. They're going to put something in you. No, education is supposed to teach you how to bring the God that you were born with out of you. So African spirituality as your daily reality, as the sum total of our understanding of cosmology and ecology and our relationships to them. Spirituality is reality. It is being conscious of the moment you're living in, being guided by the wisdom of our collective ancestors and the divine laws of nature. Spirituality is a systematic understanding of our relationship to the Creator and creation, deriving from our ancestors' observation, examination, contemplation, and the study of the universe, their immediate environment and ecology. Spirituality occurs when one is conscious of their immediate reality and is actively involved in it. Spirituality is the resulting condition, habits, practice, principles, concepts, ideas, and rituals that inform the culture that instructs the societies Africans build. This body of knowledge is derived from being instructed and informed by our ancestors and the divine laws of nature. It is, of course, God, the Creator and creation itself, that are our original and primary ancestors. Thus, we are always aware of the fact that we are having this human experience. We are but expressions of aspects of the divine essence, having this human experience. We must know that we are spirits in transition. The great light, the divine, brought out of itself smaller lights. It is only through constant replication that the great light, the divine, continues to exist and know that it exists. Each small light represents an aspect of the personality of the essence of the great light, the divine. Yes, we are all expressions and aspects of the divine having the human experience. An ancient African proverb went like this: men and women are to become God-like through a life of virtue and the cultivation of the spirit through the scientific knowledge, practice, and bodily discipline. Africans see God as a totality of creation, that is every and all things at once. The Ewe people of Togo call this Sobelisa, or Voodoo Dazi, the essence of God in man. And that word voodoo comes from the Fan language and the Ewe language, and it simply means the essence of God in things. So we are about expressions of aspects of the divine essence having the human experience. And so when we get clear on that, and we really truly understand that, we'll deal with religion quite differently. Quite differently. And so we look to try and be free by imitating the very thing that has made us slaves. So if you do that, you're simply going to continue making yourselves slaves. In order to be free, you must return to the way of the ancestors, which was the way of the universe. Cosmology and ecology. How can anything die if it ever lives? Everybody in this, anybody in this room? Oh, yeah, this one, so I won't break it down. Everybody was going to break it down for the elders, young men. I was going to break it down for the elders, how we came into being. But I'm going to find a better way to say it. I don't want to get the youngsters confused. Each one of us had a mother and a father. Anybody here didn't have a mother and a father? Each one of us had a mother and a father. That mother and a father came together physically, and one contributed an egg, and one contributed what we call a sperm. One contributed the source of the matter continuum, along with energy, and the other contributed pure energy. We are nothing but energy and matter. In that design, the matter houses the energy, but the energy also houses the matter. So when your mother and father gave birth to you, they gave birth to themselves. And this piece you gotta really get if you're gonna understand anything about spirituality. All the other stuff is just to make you try to figure out how to follow me when I decide to go where I'm gonna go. Right? If your mother and father gave birth to themselves when they give birth to you, then what does that say? That they will not stop existing when they're dead, because you are they going forward. Do you understand that? Yes. So Bubba was over here pouring libations to the ancestors, and all y'all was looking in the cemetery someplace. You are the ancestors. They're not in a cemetery. They recreated themselves for themselves before they disposed of their other self. That's African culture. That's African theocracy. And so your culture was supposed to instruct you and inform you to stay consistent with that body of understanding. But when somebody take away your teaching tool, which is your culture, you get confused in how you interpret your reality to yourself. Your mother and father had 4 parents between them, your grandparents, who when they gave birth to your mother and father did what? Give birth to themselves. So then who are you? You are your grandparents. You are your great-grandparents. You are your great-great-grandparents. We could call it body shifts or whatever we want to call it. But they didn't go nowhere. solution of the matter that can no longer function in its environment to contain the energy that is really you. So when we think of religion, if what I just said is true, and you can't prove that ain't true, because we know that none of that is true. And when we recreate ourselves, we make that the most beautiful experience in the whole world. Y'all in the aggregate there, y'all know damn well that's the most beautiful experience in the whole world when we get to recreating ourselves. Because we understand the importance of creation. Because you are the creator. Ain't no other force gonna come out here and do nothing. A mother was talking to me a little while earlier about her beautiful daughter and where she went to school, and her handsome and powerful son, where he went to school, and his success and achievements. But you created them. What we call God can only exist through you. See? God can only exist through you. And when you forget that, God stopped existing among you because you're not conscious of the fact that God should exist as you. And people take advantage of you because you think you've been abandoned by God or you don't have a God. No, God is always there because you are the always. But if you lose consciousness of that, then you disseminate into this division, racial divisions, cultural divisions, ethnic divisions, political divisions, for creature comfort desires. I want some nice taste of wine. I want to have sex with this one. I want to drive in a car like this. And for those creature comforts, we're willing to flush God down the toilet. If you understand the African system that most of us use now, as we are trying to return to an African system, and it has its confusion and corruptions too. So I remember display myself. I'll be like a big dude in the tradition, right? So I'm a priest of Oya in the tradition of Yoruba, manifestation of the African system. There's no thing called Yoruba religion. Yoruba is a people who practice the authentic African religion, which is the religion of cosmology and ecology. Right? And we call that Ifa. Ifa is a system of divination based on 16 basics and 256 derivative figures that we call Odus, obtained by the manipulation of 16 palm nuts, ikan, or by the toss of a chain, the opele, or 8 half-seed shells. And we see somebody there taking some shells and throwing them. Where's my shells? They're in my bag. We throwing out those shells. You know, how the hell can that make a difference about anything? But you got 16 shells that when you throw them, the configurations of upward, down, or sideways can be determined, which leads to thousands of possibilities. Right? But these 16 objects can be interpreted. And over the centuries, it was based on probability and statistics on how they fall. Oh, so this is the opele. You got some brothers around there acting like they know something about the religion. These round piece represents the cowrie shell. And this priest who's trained, this would be an Ifa priest, a Babalawo. I'm not a Babalawo, I'm a Babalarisha. A Babalarisha is the priest of one of the Orishas, or multiple Orishas. Orisha is a force of nature or a force of cosmology that we've managed to interpret, to capture, and use in our daily lives. And so this is tossed. And given how it falls, whether one of these are up or down, and so forth, there's a probability and statistics that's already been written down in scripture on how you can interpret that configuration. And the same things with these shells. And the shells that are used, the cotton, we always have the top cut out of it. And again, you throw them, and depending on the configuration, how many is up, how many is down, and maybe one may sometimes fall on the side. But each possibility is already accounted for in years, centuries of studies. So they said the possibility, you have maybe 3,000, 4,000, or whatever possibilities for these configurations to happen. And our ancestors have looked and says, each of them means something. Kind of like, because remember, we're talking about cosmology and ecology. The sun, right? We created the calendar, we created the days, we created the stellar calendar, which is the study of the movement of the stars and constellations. The solar calendar, the study of the movement of the sun, and then the lunar calendar, which is the study of the movement of the moon. And the African did created all three, combined the three into what the calendar we use today is an African calendar. It's not a Julian calendar. Julius Caesar simply changed that the way leap year is demonstrated. We had 12 months of 30 days with a 5 days feast period, and they simply took those other days and tacked it on to make what we call leap year. So it's still the African calendar, the same calendar that our ancestors put together. And what we were trying to do is interpret the reality. And I'll show you, you see it every day. How many persons ever seen Leonardo da Vinci's picture of the Last Supper? Everybody, right? You see the painting of the Last Supper? And you got Jesus, he's sitting up there, as big as he could be. And, well, he ain't really Jesus, it's some white dude who's a model for Da Vinci, right? And you got the light coming out of his head, they call it a halo. But he really the sun. See, it's a discussion about the solar drama. But people in Europe couldn't read in those days. So how do you teach the people who can't read something? You create a hieroglyph. A painting is nothing more than a hieroglyph. Right? And so here we got the sun. And what does the sun have? 12 months going around it. 12 disciples. 12 signs of the zodiac. And if you look at the picture Da Vinci paid, the 12 people are in 4 groups of 3s, the 4 seasons. They just played you. It's a solar drama. Let's talk about cosmology and ecology. Trying to explain to the European who did not read or write at that time a body of wisdom that they had learned about in ancient Africa. And we still look at it and don't know what we look at it. We studied astronomy because the masses of our people didn't have time to study astronomy. They had to herd the cattle, herd the sheep, herd the goat, plant the wheat, plant the barley, fish for the fish, build the homes, make the mud. So they said, okay, we're going to pay you guys. We're going to call y'all priests or scientists. But we want y'all to tell us what we supposed to do when that star's over there, and that constellation over there, and that sun is over there. How are we supposed to know when to plant our seeds, when to harvest our food, when to get away from the flood because we know it's coming? How do we know when to make the cattle? It's to help us do that. We don't give y'all, we'll make sure y'all got a good place to live, and y'all got good food to eat. But y'all devote your one day to study the stars. And that science became astronomy. But now you can't come and explain all of that to the mass. You don't explain astronomy to a sheep herder. You ain't got time to hear that. So you create what? Astrology as a method of explaining astronomy to the masses. Are y'all hearing me? Because this is what y'all call a religion: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, all based on what I'm just talking about right now. You offer me some money? So, when we talk about spirituality, we're not talking about spookality. We're talking about spirituality. African sacred science. What the European is calling science is our sacred science, except he took the sacred out of it. once he conquered us. And I think Sister was talking about how we run away from science now, because someone has, you know, the term throwing the baby out with the bathwater concept? That's what they're forced us to do with the mimetic infection of our mind that I talked about earlier. But history will help you heal that. Knowledge and understanding will help you put that in another perspective. Down here in Jacksonville, there's no reason for there to be any poverty in the black community. You got some of the most educated black people in the world in this community. You have some of the wealthiest black people in Florida in this community. You have a history like no other city in Florida for black people in this community. But most of us don't even know the history of Jacksonville. How many of you have ever been to the Ritz Theater? At least a couple. Okay. And the Ritz is a new Ritz, thanks to Sister Carol Alexander, who's actually opening a museum today on America's Beach. She wanted to be here with us today, but she couldn't. But the old Ritz was like the Apollo in Harlem. This was the Harlem of the South. And other people saw what you had and came in and manipulated you and took it from you. Because you didn't realize what you had in your hands. And you didn't realize what you had in your hands because you don't know your culture. And people say, oh, we lost our culture, we forgot our culture. That concept of mimetic infection, where someone put their ideas and concepts into your mind and you act on that, is what is causing us the problems. Because we didn't lose, our people never really forgot. That's why in the 1700s they named the Prince Hall Lodge was called the Free African Lodge. And our mother lodge today is still called the Free African Lodge. The AME Church was called the African Methodist Episcopal Church. The Baptist Church in South Carolina, Savannah, the First Baptist Church, was called the African Baptist Church. The political organization started by T. Thomas Jefferson and those women in 1892 was called the Afro-American League. Malcolm X didn't invent Afro-American. And you go all through our history and our organization, the Bible named Africa, Sudan, or Ethiopia. The Hebrew Israelite community was founded, they tried to say in the 1800s, no, it was founded in the mid-1800s. The Hebrew Israelite movement was founded before the Nation of Islam. And was founded before most black churches. But yet we reject those brothers and sisters because it's kind of alien to us because we are Christians for the most part. But yet their effort opened the door to many of the Christian communities that came into being after that. The Nation of Islam didn't drop out of the sky. There was a man before the Honorable Elijah Muhammad named Noble Drew Ali. And he founded the Moorish Science Temple of America. But the Moorish Science Temple of America was a Muslim movement. It was an Islamic movement. It wasn't ever supposed to be a racial movement. Because there's no such thing as the racial movement. Moors is a European word for black people. The black people in North Africa used that word. And they didn't use the word Berbers or some other little cute word people that throw around. They call themselves Gudamas. Their ethnic name are the Gudamas and the Caramantes. Those were the primary names of the people who the white man would call the Moors. They're sitting right in this room right now. You all come from among those same people. Because when they got pushed out of North Africa, they went to Senegal, they went to Mali, they went to Mauritania. When they got pushed out of there, they came down to Ghana, they came down to Nigeria, they came down to Cameroon. Then somebody came and captured them and put them on a boat. Because they wanted the technology that was in their minds. They saw us build all those other civilizations. And they now wanted us to build their civilizations. When the white man came to America, he knew why he came. And I'll tell you a backstory, and then I'll come and tell you what it is that he knew. I just like this beautiful young lady. Her name is Georgia. Oh, that girl was And I'm serious, Judge Evans, just so beautiful a human being. And she, how many people have heard of Ilya DeBoer? Okay. She did what do you call it? They did cotillions every year. Would you believe I was a cotillion escort? Congo band, white dinner jacket, all that haircut, right? Patent leather shoes. And we would escort the ladies onto the stage, you know, as they would go to their cotillions. And that's how I met Georgie. So one night, we were going to the cotillion, but, you know, I was a young, poor guy. I didn't have no money to get a tuxedo, so I'm sitting on the stoop and I'm lamenting to some of the other young guys. I really want to take Georgie into this cotillion, but I don't have the money. And so the two guys sitting in the car, they always sat there every day doing their little drinking and having fun and talking. They called me over to the car and said, "Get in." I said, "Well, I'm going." They said, "Get in the car, boy." So I got in the car. They took me to the Bronx. They rented me a tuxedo and shoes so I could go take Georgia to the prom, to the cotillion. And then the next week they told me, "Did you take those things back? Because you know you rented them." And so I would find out that these both brothers were Masons, they were Freemasons. But what they didn't know is I was an E-man, but I was a secret E-man. How many persons knew what mosque I was the E-man of? I was the E-man of the Muslim Mosque founded by Malcolm X upon his assassination. At age 21, I became the E-man of that mosque. So the thing was, how do we keep them alive? Don't let nobody know who the E-man is. So I became the secret E-man for a long time. But the two brothers didn't know that. So I came one day and I'm so happy to tell them, "I'm going to Mecca." This is 1973. And the brother said, "You going where?" I said, "I'm going to Mecca." And these two men who loved me and treated me really nice said, "Get away from me, get away from me." First I thought they were joking, but they were serious. And they got out of the car. They said, "What is wrong with you? Why would you leave Mecca to go to Mecca?" I did not have a clue what those men were talking about. So I went to Malcolm X's sister Ella. I said, "Sister Ella, here's what happened," because Ella was like a mother to me. And so she tried to explain. When the whites came here, this was not an aberration. This was not an accident. They came to build Mecca. Conceptually. Mecca don't mean a black stone. Mecca means prosperity. Right? They came to build, to replicate Kemet. The black stone in Mecca is called the what? The Ka and the Ba. In Kemet's sacred science, the Ka and the Ba is when the spirit and the soul comes together to make the divine. Allah or Ra. So they understood that we had a system of knowing reality scientifically, and they wanted to replicate that here in this new land that they had discovered. But they could not do this except doing what? I got to drop this on the bottom. They had to go get the master builders, male and female, and bring them over here to build this thing. Because we're the only one that had ever built a civilization. There's not a single civilization in Europe that you can point to. They're trying to point at the Greeks, but the Greeks said, "No, we copied Africa." So they can't really own that. So they needed somebody to come and create what we had created that they had destroyed with their greed and their armies in America. But we didn't know what we were creating. But they knew what they were creating. And they knew why they needed to bring us to create it. And we came and we created it. And in our mystery system, they told what they do to the master builder. When the temple was done, they killed them. For the brothers who are here, I'm not going over our heads. So don't be disturbed. We have to understand who we are as a people. It isn't just our beautiful body shapes and our fancy dancing and culture and buildings of great temples. We knew how to replicate the universe on earth. You understand? There's a prayer in Arabic. What's it? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Kuhu Allahu Ahad. Allahu Samad. Walam yulad walam yulid. Walam yakun lahu kufuwan ahad. Allahu Akbar. Know that Allah is one. He begets none, knows He begotten, and there's none like it unto Allah. But you go back to ancient Egypt and you go to the temple of Akhenaten, and he says the same prayer thousands of years earlier. O soul God, ye who have been given birth to by none, and who have not given birth to anyone, only you, Ra, exist, and I am your servant. And you can go through all of the holy books. Every one of them tells you that God is inside of you. The Bible tells you that. The Torah tells you that. The Quran tells you that. The book of the pyramid text tells you that. What these ancient people was trying to do was interpret cosmology and ecology as a blueprint for how your character would be built. So that what we call truth, justice, harmony, balance, and reciprocity could reign in the environment. So spirituality isn't just some rituals. I know over here in New York, every time you turn around, everybody's ebo this and we ebo and we do too much damn ebo. But we don't find any problem. Then people have a problem with, oh, they're going to kill some chicken up in there. They're going to cut that chicken head off. Kentucky Fried cut off the head of a lot of chickens. Nobody tell Kentucky Fried they got to pray over the chickens. We cut the head off one chicken and pray over it. And we eat the chicken afterward, and we're ostracized. But the problem is we do too much of that. Just eat the chicken. Because the system that we are trying to find our way back to, you're not going to find your way back to it if you're trying to replicate what Europeans have done with Christianity. That's not African religion. Just wearing these beads don't make you to be an African religion. This one is called AME. Right? What does that mean? How many people didn't know what AME means? 1, 2, 3. So that's a shame. This one is the scary one. This is Shakpana, Babaluaye. And this one is about to lie. I wear all of 23 Orishas. I earned 23 Orishas. So I just figured these people are hang out. Now what these are symbols of schools of thought. These are symbols of philosophical concepts and ideas that we managed to retain, but not being allowed to build an institution, a building where we could grow our knowledge. Our ancestors were smart enough to come up with a system using beads. Each of these represent what a church represents, what a mosque represents. These are philosophical schools of thoughts, of concepts and ideas and principles of an aspect of our astrotheology, because that would be the proper term to describe what we call African religion. You should call it astrotheology. Sister earlier was talking about astrophysics. I would recommend everybody to listen to the young brother. He ain't that young anymore, but I went to school with his father, Tyson, the Gran Tyson. Brilliant this young brother. The Gran Tyson. Watch this man. Follow his line. He drops a lot of science that people may just be giggling at. But he drops the science. You are the universe. Everybody in here is a replica of the totality of all that is. How do you release that replica? How do you release the force and the power of that replica? That's what religion is supposed to do. To teach you how to bring the best of the divine within you out to share with the rest of your environment. But if the teachers with the knowledge are corrupt in their moral ethics, you're going to get what we have today in the world. In this book, when Atum became aware of itself as being, it said Atum arose out of the primordial waters of Nun, the black waters. Now that black water didn't say water black, and that means black people, the black water, don't get caught up on that piece. It's something referring to unknowability. We don't know what was there before the concept we call Atum came into being. And Atum represents becoming conscious of your existing. And Atum says in the text, when I became aware that I existed, I hiccup. Hiccup meant, it means the word. I created out of me by word. I cough up shoe. In ancient Kim, we talk about the God shoe, but he's talking about air. I spat out tefnut. He's talking about radiation. They gave birth to Geb. He's talking about the earth, matter. And they gave birth to, what's this guy?
Shoe?
No. Shoe tefnut gives birth to Geb and Newt. And so they're talking about the stars. And it's a dissertation in quantum physics. It's a dissertation in quantum physics, that far back in history. In the pyramid text on the walls of the tombs. And then he goes on and says, until he creates a Sar, and he creates a Set, and he creates Nephthys, and he creates Set. And then he says, having created everything my heart desired. This is the first God, the Etum, when consciousness became aware of itself as consciousness. He says, having created everything my heart desired, I, the Almighty, expanded in them all. I mean, God is in everything. Are you all with me? I know.
Oh, yeah. We're here.
This is too much to explain in 2 or 3 or 4 hours. I didn't try to put it in a packet, right? So people get a concept and an understanding. And so, being, and all of us know, how can we come together and have this intercourse and replicate ourselves? What's going on here? What is that? That is creation. You're the creator. But we're not taught that we are the creator. We thought that the creator is out there, and we're not here, somewhere. But if you don't create, creation ends. It's done.
How does the Ankh on your shirt symbolize the creation?
I didn't allow you to ask me any questions. Really, people say it means life. It means more than life. It doesn't just mean life. It means like coming into being, to become. And on the back, I have the Inyami and Chianyami. Nothing exists but this existence. So if God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omnipotent, and supreme, nothing can exist but it. So then what are the rest of us? Right? We're simply aspect of that one thing. All of us representing a piece of it, and that's what makes it up. So what the Africans saw as the divine is the totality of everything, including us. And how the divine maintain itself is we are the aspects of it that constantly replicate and perfect itself. So when somebody corrupts our memory of our purpose through the mimetic infection, we put the whole universe in trouble and in jeopardy. There will not ever be any peace on the earth until black men and women restore the integrity of their own spiritual consciousness. Nobody, I don't care how many atomic bombs they have, how much money they have, how many scientific institutions they have, there will be no peace on this earth until we restore ourselves. But the set consciousness, which is represented by the European being, which is symbolic of chaos and disorder in cosmology, knows that. And in order for chaos to continue, then Ma'at, harmony, must not be allowed to regroup. You represents harmony. You're the only one that has the potential to contain all of the elemental forces that exist in nature and time. The European does not have the capacity to contain spirit. He substitutes something he calls intellect for what the African has that's called spirit. And as long as they can keep you disjointed and disorganized and ill-informed and antagonistic towards yourself, the spirit cannot grow. And his intellect will reign. And he understands this. You think you're the same as he is in terms of your understanding. You're not. You don't even begin to understand what it is you're up against. I watched a little boy go to Europe 2 days ago. I think they call him the Secretary of State. Did you hear him? He sounded like a juvenile. He doesn't understand. He represents the children of the former imprisoned and street beggars that was brought to America. How many people realize this was a European prison colony, like Australia? They've covered it up so nicely. Most of the European families that came here were out of debtors' prisons and beggars off the streets that was indentured to come here. But the elite of Europe has never allowed them power. What has just occurred? The debtors' children, the beggars, have been put in power. But all of the ignorance and misconceptions. And I look at the little boy talking to the European leadership. Suppose I said no. Yes, sir. My chair. Let me just do a quick summary for 5 minutes. Spirituality is being conscious and aware of your reality. And we should not refer to it so much as spirituality, we should refer to it as sacred science. An understanding of how cosmology and ecology work in your role in it. That's what the thing we call religion should be about. And when we talk about African spirituality, it's not being superior or inferior. That's not what this is about, because that would be off track. Because you can't be superior or inferior to anything if you exist. Every content has context, just as every content have intent. And so we need to study just that, context and intent of the content that you represent. And you begin that by studying history. History will indeed erase the mystery. But I'm going to bring this to a conclusion. I was trying to find a way to wrap it up with just a singular kind of line, but you really can't do that because it's too big for that. too big for that. So I'll bring this display more than a discussion to conclusions, and then I'll take questions, which I hope you have. And don't feel intimidated by me. I don't know nothing. I'm just out there pretending I know some stuff that I really don't know. Right. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm gonna honor my second mic, which is nice. If you have any questions, put your hand up. I will try to get down with the microphone.
Yeah, because I thought we had two, but we only got this one now. Okay. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So, anybody got any questions for Professor Smalls? You do? Okay.
He gonna make me break out my other necklace now. So,
Thank you, sir. Thank you for today. I was going to ask you about Jared Massey. Jared Massey, he had two students, Alvin Coolboy and there's another one.
yeah, boy.
It was what is, he had another student that dealt with more like a mathematical piece with what he taught. I had those, I studied those. I wanted to ask what you thought about it. You recommended to anybody like the particular study at the time, what you was going over with today?
No, I would recommend that anything by Gerald Massey should be read. Right. Gerald Massey was one who studied Gerald Massey studied European. He was a European who studied chemistry very well. Did a lot of good research, and he was but as honest as any of the ancient European writers have been as regarding our wisdom system. I mean, he left a lot to be desired once you get in there. So that's why I'm going to put this necklace on now. You need to go to the basement, but I'm bringing up here and you all seeing now. Now, everybody got symbols, right? Symbols, for those who know what the symbols are, realize that the symbols suggest that you might know something about something. But he's talking about Massey and his students. You got the book of The Beginnings, which is an interesting, very powerful piece that you need to get. Alpha Boyd Kuhn. There's one of them. Huh? And right, but anything by Massey, anything by Boyd Kuhn would help you really get a good understanding of when there were some Europeans who was really looking for the truth, and they brought a lot of it forth. So if you can get to any of those literatures, and some of them you can find on Amazon. What they'll do with you, because those books are so significant, they'll tell you it costs $400 to you. What you got to do is keep going back and always ask for a used copy. See, because that's how they play you, because they make you think, oh, you want something. I want a used copy. And you see the price drop down maybe from $200, $300 to $35, $40 if you keep going back and keep going back. But they don't want to share the information yet. By law, they can't deny the information because it's in the marketplace. But you've got to know it's there. Which one is that? Dr. Higgins. Oh, yeah. He's a bad dude, and he did a lot of linguistics. I was looking to see him. He just put it in one of the Lefty's Asante books. But anyway, you're looking at Gerald Massey, you look at Dr. Higgins, you're looking at Boyd Kuhn. Any of those three authors is worth studying to really get a heavy foundation on chemistry. If you really want to get a true foundation on chemistry that's closer to you than you know, study the Bible and study the Torah and study the Quran, but do the etymology of the primary words. Right? Because that's how they hide it. They'll use a word that's not English, and you don't know what it means. You can go to the Quran and it says, like this one out of the hymn, alhamdulillah, it says, that's a lie, because there's certain chapters that I have to open without if that mean without any definition of what those chapters are about. So everybody's trying to hide your truth, but I'm trying to make it simple. We're talking about understanding what is called quantum physics today. That's really what it is understanding quantum physics, what they now call quantum physics. But quantum physics is simply a study of cosmology. What's going on out there? We are on a planet. People talk about outer space. We live in outer space. We are all aliens hanging out, spinning around, and wobbling, and doing some other things. And then we're sailing along in the Milky Way at thousands of miles an hour. We're not just turning and standing in one place. We're turning, we're wobbling, we're rotating, and we're sailing along all at one time at light year speeds. Now, what is happening to us in this process? Somebody has limited our mind to think that we are down here on some flat surface called Earth with no real relationship with nothing else in cosmology. We are a part of cosmology. And that's why we must master it, study it, and learn how it works. Every one of us represents a sun or Ra. And everyone that hears you represent an asset or a moon who reflects the light that you've given. And that same person who is the moon becomes the sun to somebody else. All right, who reflects the light that you. We are an imitation of the universe itself. But you need to study how it works, then you know how you should work. Any other questions? Don't be afraid. Questions is how you get stuff out. Don't be.
Any other questions? Yep.
Again, I wanted to appreciate, show you appreciation for everything you've done for coming out tonight, especially Jacksonville. We were talking earlier about the history of Jacksonville, but also when you talk about spiritual technology or spiritual science. I'm sorry.
I know that's that Geechee in you.
Yes, sir. When you talk about spiritual science and spiritual technology.
Sacred science.
Sacred science and sacred. How do you feel about like natural, like you were just talking about reading Corey shells, also stones, where our ancestors, the first thing they came and took was the stones, and how do you feel about that as far as the different symbols and stones? And I think I remember you talking about the Bem Bem stone one time, and talking about Obex in one of your lectures a couple years ago. So how do you feel about stone technology and stuff of that nature?
Well, I don't know that much about it. Truth is. But I don't want to go too far with either. Yeah, sorry about that. You're the master, you're the scientist in that area with the stones. What I do know is that our bodies contain more than 400 minerals, right? 400 plus. There isn't an element in existence where aspects of it is not part of what makes us up. We are made up of everything in the universe. You think my Zen wasn't having a conversation with your Zen when he was sitting up over here? And my iron and this brother's iron, they were just interacting all day. My manganese and your manganese, they talk to each other. Do you understand? We contain everything in the universe. And all of it communicates, but if you're unconscious of the communication, you can't control that interaction. That's what's called spiritual. When you can control it. How many martial artists in the room? 1, 2. So you know the one thing that they teach us in the early years is how to yield and survive. I mean, nobody want to go out there and get banged upside the head. You just understand, like, I don't really want to fight. I don't really want to conflict. I'm only here to protect the integrity of this institution that wants peace. Right? And the various systems, go. But people who are into the martial arts, the one thing they have to do is find that place in themselves where the peace resides. The temple in you. How do you find that place? Because that's what you're protecting. Because in the beginning, the priests would get beat up, misused, and abused, and somebody said, we don't have to do that. let's just imitate nature. So we'll imitate a tiger, we'll imitate a mantis, we'll imitate a cobra. We can learn how they defend themselves in nature, and we will then learn how to defend ourselves against those who would dare try to misuse the institutions that we represent. As teachers, we call them priests, but they probably didn't use that term priest, they used the term teacher. So all human beings should want to find a way to wake up that energy in you that allow you to guard the institutions that you are. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a fighter. And I put a picture on the internet the other day, I had my swords, right? 2 of them in there, had my red belt on. You know, I ain't earned no red belt. That's a ceremonial red belt. Now, I've been in the arts for 50 years, but the elders decided that you've been in this dojo long enough, we're going to give you a red belt, even though you ain't really. And I'm happy for that, because what it symbolizes was the continuity that me and the brothers have been into, and me teaching that history. This history, this coming together, this organization today, is an attempt to tell you here in Jacksonville that we can make anything happen for us economically, politically, and culturally if we come together. And because we come together, it don't mean that we all agree on the same things, the same way. We may even disagree on a lot of things, but if we just find the one thing we agree upon and make that a successful venture, we've accomplished a big goal. And once you're able to find out how to bring one successful agreement to shores, you'll figure out how to bring another one to shores. Because yes, all of us can be successful by ourselves. We can. And that's been the problem. When the enemy comes, he doesn't come at you by yourself. He comes at the group. And because we're all out here by ourselves, there's no group defense when any one of us is met with destruction from the outside. So we've got to come together, and we've got to do more of this. I know, sister, you had a question. You took the question back?
No. It wasn't really a question per se. I came at you earlier and I said, what's good? And you said, I heard the first part, but you didn't say anything after that. So I would say, based on what I've heard you here to say, is when I say, or anyone says what's good, it would be our history. Why? Because it dispels the mystery, or the secrets that are supposed to be hidden from us. Is that a good way to sum it up? Is that what you're saying?
And then you interpret the question. When you're almost 80, you don't hear things like you normally hear them. You know, they get a little curve coming in. So, restate the question.
So the question was, when you said, what's good, that was...
He just said, well, that's the only part I heard. But then after giving his speech, in my opinion, and I'm entitled to it, what he's saying is, or what he's telling us here today, right, is our history, knowing our history, because it dispels or dissolves or get rid of the mystery of our confusion, basically.
Right.
Is that a good way to sum up?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
See, I'm saying that history erases the mystery. Right? The mystery is what we don't know about ourselves. In order for a cat to behave like a cat must know instinctively the history of what's being a cat all about. The African don't know what's being an African is all about in most cases. And not for a reason that's as bad as we think. I think our ancestors in this war of the last 500 or so years thought like we can all get along. And it didn't work like that. The other side didn't think like that. So we set everything down and said, let's come together and create a oneness. And Europe never had any intentions of creating a unity of different cultures and ideas. And we thought that's what we were doing. In the 1950s, there were thousands of black stores where there's now not any black stores. Because we thought we would come together and we would spend with them and they would spend with us, and that never happened. And then the propaganda and everything made us think that their sugar was sweeter than ours, their grits was coarser than ours, and etc. And it's like Black Wall Street, and we had multiple Black Wall Streets. You had a major one right here in Jacksonville, and it was more than one street, right? But the one in Tulsa that we know about that was attacked and burned to the ground and our ancestors murdered and raped and abused, rebuilt itself better than it was before. Nobody talks about that. But it died from integration. It died from integration. It died because when we made a decision to extend our wealth into the white community's enterprises without any reciprocation to our enterprises died. But Tulsa and Greenwood was rebuilt. We didn't win all of the court cases, but we won many of them. But after 1960, really 55, it began to die because the black money was moved away from the black banks to white banks. The black money was spent in white retail enterprises instead of black retail enterprises, and black retail enterprises slowly died. Along with other factors, the drugs that was introduced in our community, the organized criminal network, white organized criminal network used to do things that law enforcement could legally do to destroy and murder and disable and to shuffle our communities. Right here in Jacksonville, they use it. You know they call it the mafia, but it wasn't just one ethnic group. It was multiple European ethnic groups that used that. They worked hand in hand with the police and the rest of the authorities. Nothing like that could exist as openly and as long as it existed, unless law enforcement was a part of that existing. Right? And all of those things destabilize us. And I remember when I opened my first bookstore, the first visit I got from some guys coming and told me I had to buy my fire extinguishers from them, and I had to sign a contract to have them redo it, put the gas in it every month. I don't need to do that, I'm going to do this myself. I said, no, you can't. Then they came by and told me that I can take my little bit of garbage from my bookstore and take it to the garbage at my house. It says, you've got to have a contract with us, and we will come by and pick up your garbage. And then it came back again. I refused to take a certain newspaper because I thought it was racist, and they came up on me like 5 o'clock in the morning when I'm opening up the store. And I had to put a bad guy and show that I got as much heat on me as you got on you. And they told me, well, our driver said you won't take this certain newspaper. And that's how they control our communities. And then we made a deal. It says you take the newspaper, but you can stick it under your counter. You don't have to sell it. But take it so our drivers can have jobs from the union. These criminals were running our community. They still do. In partnership with those who we are competing with in the retail and the wholesale industries. So,
all right, family, we'll take one more, and then Brother Umar wants to bring Brother Abdul back up, and we got a couple other things that we want to hit real quick before we wrap it up. So I got one more question, and then we'll bring Brother Abdul back up, and Brother Umar as well.
Okay, Professor Small, you did speak about education, bringing something inside out, not a process designed to bring something from the outside in. So as one educated to become a priest of Oya and serving as a priest of Oya, how do you feel that brought something very specific out of you?
I knew you were sitting over there trying to figure out something. Well, Oya is not a person, even though the symbol that's used is of a woman with locks, and she's all beautiful and jumping around through the forest and Sometimes she can become a deer or an antelope, and because she can transmutate and all of this stuff. But the concept Oya deals with change in process. Change in process. And so I learned that you have to allow change to happen because it's change in process that will wed Ogun. And most people like Baba had something about Ogun, they're better, but like talking about Ogun is the warrior, and Ogun is no damn warrior. Ogun is the warrior, and he's symbolic of that too. But Ogun represents transformation as a result of change. So if you learn to manage change, you can always help people to lead to self-transformation. And so that's the concept of my priesthood, is to show people how to go through the process of change. Because it is change that is transformative. But you must allow change to happen. But change is not going to happen without being inspired, and that's where Shango comes in. You know, Shango represents the aspiration to change. And so Oya in the metaphor will marry Shango. And then Ogun represents transformation as a result of change. So she will also marry Ogun. So that's why they said that she practiced polyandry. But it's a metaphor about concepts and ideas within your character. And so yes, that's how being a priest of Oya taught me how to help people go through changes with knowledge, because it is knowledge that helps you develop the ideas and the concepts that would allow for change, that then allows for transformation, that allows for utilities of your mind in different ways. Because when you think of Ogun, that represents transformation, he is supposed to be the one with iron. But iron is a piece of stone, and you pick up the stone, and you do what? You put it in the fire, and you burn out the impurities, and you make steel. And then steel now has a utility for weapons, for tools, for buildings, and all kinds of things. And so the ancestors were giving us metaphors about concepts, ideas, and principles in nature that are also part of how the human character can evolve. And so in understanding my Oya, that's kind of how I look at it, how I encourage change through knowledge.
All right, I appreciate it. And then we got a special guest in that wanted to give a presentation. I believe it's Congressman Rock Miles. Councilman Rock Miles? Rock. My apologies, man.
Councilman, when you came walking in the door, I said, you look like a lodge, bro. You know, Shango been jealous when I didn't bring it up.
I was just going there with you. First of all, it's good to be here to everyone. How's everyone doing today? I am not going to spend much time. I was so honored. I've admired Baba for quite a while. And I am so thankful that you have come to our city, to Jacksonville. So, first of all, this is just something special for you to read when you get an opportunity. But it is important that we honor those who are our living history when they are among us. Quite often we wait until someone is gone and then we try to honor them. But it's important that we honor our living history while they're here as much as we can in any way that we can. So I was excited when Brother Imam told me that Baba was coming so that we could be here with him, get some of the knowledge and spend some time. So first and foremost, my first reason here is on behalf of the Jacksonville City Council, especially District 14 that I represent. And by the way, I will tell you, Baba, that this district is this is the first time an African American, anybody of color, has ever represented this district in the city of Jacksonville. And appreciate you. And let me tell you, as a student of this, I will tell you the interesting part. I was doing some research on a book I'm writing called 71 Days. This seat was created through a lawsuit. 71 days after the seat was created, the election happened. There has never been a change that quick. It is an all-white, all-Republican district, and I won it by 6 points. So that tells you it is possible when you are in the space that you are supposed to be and operating in those places. So I am inherently thankful. But if you could, I know that you want to get a photo, if you could, how about thank you, and I'll read it for you. That's all right. That's all right, brother. You deserve the outcome you would need be. It says, for decades, Professor James Small has had his life dedicated to the empowerment and enlightenment of the African American community. Through his scholarly pursuits, activism, and leadership, he's been a guiding force in the study and preservation of African spirituality, Pan-Africanism, and historical consciousness. As an esteemed educator and lecturer, his profound teachings have illuminated the minds of countless individuals, encouraging a reclamation of cultural identity and historical truth. Through mentorship and scholarship of great intellectuals, his work has been the foundation of knowledge and resilience within this community. Professor Small has shown unwavering